What if the man you feared most could buy the law, buy the town, and buy your silence, but you refused to let him buy you? The rising sun painted Prosperity Creek in a fierce red glow as Naomi Ashford stumbled out the back door of her father's old general store, her heart pounding hard enough to drown out every sound around her. Her lips stung with every breath, blood drying against her chin. One eye was already swelling shut from Victor Holloway's brutal punch. In 1894 Wyoming Territory, refusing a powerful man wasn't just risky, it was a crime in his eyes. "You'll regret this," Victor's voice roared behind her as she fled into the narrow alley. "No woman refuses a Holloway!" Naomi didn't stop. She couldn't. Her trembling hands fumbled for her mare in the small stable behind the store. Her fingers shook so badly she nearly dropped the bridle. At 21, she'd learned enough about life on the frontier to know a woman alone had few protections. But she would rather face the wilderness, bandits, wolves, anything, rather than become Victor Holloway's possession. 3 months ago, her father died, leaving her with the store and with crushing debt to the Holloway family. Victor had offered marriage as a, quote, kind solution, promising to erase the debt if she became his wife. When Naomi refused, he stopped pretending to be a gentleman. Last night, he had cornered her inside the store, demanding her answer again. When she said no, he made sure she felt the price of her defiance. With blood still drying on her face, Naomi mounted her mare and rode hard through the quiet morning. Prosperity Creek, her home since birth, felt like a trap now. She passed the saloon, the church, the sheriff's office. Not one person stepped outside to help. Not Pastor Williams, who told her yesterday that a young woman should be grateful for a man like Victor. Not Sheriff Klein, who answered to Edgar Holloway and wouldn't dare cross his employers. She had no real plan, only escape. After 20 miles, her strength gave out. Near a creek, she slid off her horse, knees hitting the grass hard. She washed her face with cold water, wincing as the swollen skin burned. Her reflection stared back at her, one bruised, battered eye, a split lip, and a girl far more frightened than she wanted to admit. Then, a deep voice cut through the quiet. "Ma'am, you all right?" Naomi jerked upright, stumbling backward. A tall figure on horseback approached slowly. The rising sun framed him in gold light. She couldn't see his face clearly, but she saw the broad shoulders under a trail-worn coat, the wide-brimmed hat, the posture of a man who knew the land well. "Stay back," Naomi warned, reaching for the small derringer hidden in her skirt pocket, her father's last gift. The stranger dismounted, raising both hands. "Easy now. I mean no harm." As he stepped closer, his face came into view. Strong features, sandy hair, and eyes that softened when they landed on her injuries. His voice lost its calm edge and hardened. "Who did this to you?" "It doesn't matter," Naomi said. "I'm handling it." He studied her for a long beat, then gave a small, respectful nod. "Samuel Lawson," he said, removing his hat. "Got a camp not far from here. You're welcome to share the fire. These parts get dangerous after dark." Naomi hesitated. One danger traded for another, but something about him felt steady, not threatening. There was no hunger in his eyes, no judgment, just concern. "Naomi Ashford," she finally said. "I'll share the fire, but I sleep light." She tapped her pocket meaningfully. Samuel's mouth twitched. "Wouldn't expect otherwise." His camp was simple, just a fire, a bedroll, and his horse grazing nearby. A Winchester rested against a tree within reach. Everything about him looked like a man used to hard living, but not cruel. He handed her a tin cup of hot coffee. Naomi's cold fingers wrapped around it gratefully. "Thank you," she said. Samuel cooked beans and salt pork while she sat across the fire from him. The crackling flames filled the silence, and for a moment Naomi felt almost safe. "You running from something?" Samuel asked quietly as he handed her a plate. Naomi stared into the fire. "From a man who thinks he owns me." Samuel's face darkened. "Got a name?" "Victor Holloway." His eyebrows rose. "Edgar Holloway's boy?" She nodded. Samuel let out a low whistle. "You picked a powerful enemy." I didn't pick anything, Naomi snapped. He made an offer. I said no, that's all. Samuel nodded slowly. Holloways don't hear no often. I'd rather lose everything than be his wife. Samuel looked at her with something like respect. Can't blame you. Naomi sighed, staring at the flames. I have an aunt in Denver, but that's nearly 400 miles away. Samuel took a sip of coffee. You could ride with me. I'm headed toward Cheyenne, then south, safer traveling together. Suspicion flared. Why help me? Samuel's eyes grew distant. Because I know what it means to be hunted by powerful men. His tone was quiet, but something heavy lived inside it. And because no woman deserves what he did to you. Naomi studied him. His posture, his steady hands, his calm strength. He didn't feel like danger, he felt like shelter. I'll ride with you, she said finally, at least to Cheyenne. Samuel, he corrected. Call me Samuel. Naomi, she replied softly. As she lay that night in a blanket beside the fire, Naomi watched Samuel's silhouette against the flames. He sat awake for hours, keeping guard. His shoulders looked burdened, but his presence made her feel protected in a way she hadn't felt in months. For the first time since her father died, she felt a small spark inside her hope. She didn't know it yet, but Samuel Lawson wasn't just a man she met by chance. He would become the turning point of her life. She closed her eyes, unaware that danger still rode behind them, and that the Holloways were not done with her yet. The morning sun rose clear and cold, waking Naomi with a soft glow against her eyelids. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she opened her eyes and saw Samuel crouched by the fire, brewing coffee and frying bacon in a cast-iron pan. He moved with easy confidence, the way men did who'd lived long on the trail. Morning, he said, giving her a quick look. Thought I'd let you sleep. You needed it after yesterday. Naomi sat up slowly, wincing as her bruises pulled tight. Her eye was still swollen, her cheek darkened into deep purple. Does it look bad? She asked as she touched her face. Samuel studied her gently. I've seen worse, he said, trying to sound light, but it'll be noticeable a while. Her stomach sank. She already stood out enough. Most folks won't ask, Samuel said softly, and the ones who do well will have a story ready. They ate quietly before packing camp. Naomi watched Samuel work, the way he checked the horses, the land, the sky. Every movement had purpose. When he helped her into her saddle, he did it gently, as though he feared hurting her further. The land stretched wide around them as they rode south. Rolling hills, open plains, distant mountains. But Samuel kept glancing over his shoulder, scanning their trail. You act like someone's following, Naomi observed. He didn't deny it. Holloways have long reach. Best to stay alert. They rode for hours before stopping by a creek for a simple meal. Naomi let her mare drink while Samuel sat under the shade of a cottonwood. You move like you've done this a long time, she said, always watching every direction. Force of habit, he replied. Army scout for a few years. Teaches a man to see danger before it sees him. You're not with the army anymore? A shadow crossed his face. No. He didn't explain further, and Naomi didn't push. They rode on, each mile putting Prosperity Creek farther behind her. By afternoon, they reached a small trading post called Miller's Crossing, a handful of wooden buildings clustered around a dusty yard. Stay close, Samuel advised. Most folks here are decent, but you can't be too careful. When they entered the trading post, all eyes turned toward Naomi's bruised face. The room went quiet until a large, bearded man stepped out from the back. Lawson, he said, smiling. Didn't expect you so soon. Good to see you, Miller, Samuel replied. We'll need 2 rooms. And supplies. Miller's gaze moved to Naomi, softening when he saw her injuries. Miss, he said gently, you take the room at the end of the hall. Most private one. Quote, she had trouble in Prosperity Creek, Samuel said low. Holloway trouble. Miller's expression darkened. Edgar Holloway's boys don't scare me. You're safe here, miss. Naomi felt herself relax for the first time in days. Samuel handled the horses, while Miller's wife, Emma, came bustling in with tea and a cool cloth soaked in witch hazel. Poor dear, Emma said as she dabbed gently at Naomi's cheek. No man should ever raise a hand to a woman. You rest now. Later, Naomi and Samuel shared stew at a small table. She found herself watching him. How quietly he moved, how respectfully he spoke to Emma, how careful he was with her. Stage leaves for Cheyenne in 2 days, Samuel said. Safer than riding. Naomi's heart tightened. Are you saying we part ways? Only if that's what you want, he replied. I'll help you however you choose. I'll ride with you, she said. Samuel's look of relief was subtle, but real. That night, she lay in her small rented bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Samuel's steady presence and the dangers still behind her. Morning brought trouble. Samuel and Miller sat together in low conversation when Naomi entered. Both men looked tense. What is it? She asked. A rider came through late last night, Miller said. Victor Holloway is offering a $500 reward for information about a missing woman. Naomi's heart dropped. He says you stole heirlooms, Samuel added. He's covering his tracks. How long before his men reach here? Naomi forced out. A day, maybe 2, Miller replied. You need to leave today. Emma packed food and clothing for Naomi without hesitation. Miller handed Samuel a folded map and a carved wooden token. Friends who don't like the Holloways, Miller explained. Safe places along the county lines. Show them that, and they'll help. They rode out fast, taking a narrow trail south. The easy conversation of earlier days vanished. Samuel kept checking behind them, his jaw tight, his hand never far from his gun. By midday, they climbed into pine-covered hills, thick enough to hide in, but rugged enough to slow any pursuers. They stopped by a spring to rest the horses. Naomi watched Samuel pour water into his hat for the animals. Samuel, is this because of me? She asked quietly. He looked up, his expression softening. Naomi, whatever trouble you bring, I chose it, and I don't go back on choices. His words warmed her more than the sun, but peace didn't last. As they prepared to mount up, Samuel froze. Riders. Far off, but coming. He saddled quickly. We need to move, now. They rode into deeper forest, following narrow, hidden trails Samuel seemed to know by instinct. Rain clouds gathered overhead as the land grew wilder. Finally, just as thunder cracked, they reached a tiny lined shack tucked into a canyon, one of Miller's safe houses. It isn't much, Samuel said, opening the creaking door, but it'll keep us hidden. Rain poured as they stepped inside. Naomi brushed dust from a chair while Samuel lit a fire. The small room felt cramped but safe. They cooked a simple meal, the storm pounding the roof above them. Samuel noticed her shivering and handed her his coat without a word. Naomi changed into one of Emma's dresses, asking Samuel to turn around. When she told him he could look, he did, and paused. The dress suits you, he said softly. Heat rose in Naomi's cheeks. Thank you. There was only one bunk. I'll take the floor, Samuel said immediately. You can't sleep on these old boards, she argued. Naomi, he said gently, I've slept on worse. You take the bed. His tone ended the argument. As she lay on the thin mattress, she watched Samuel, tending the fire through the shadows. He looked tired, burdened, yet steady as stone. Somehow, she felt safer with him there than she had felt anywhere in months. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, something delicate and new was forming between them, slow, steady, and impossible to ignore. And neither of them knew the Holloways were already closing in. Rain still clung to the trees the next morning when Naomi woke to the smell of coffee and the steady scrape of Samuel sharpening his knife outside the shack. The storm had passed, but the danger had not. She could feel it in the weight of the air, in the tenseness of Samuel's shoulders, in the way the horses kept lifting their heads to listen. You're awake, Samuel said, stepping inside. Eat quick. We need to move fast today. Naomi sat up, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. Did you see riders? No, Samuel said, but the tightness in his voice told her enough. but they're out there. I can feel it." They rode south through the bright morning light, following narrow game trails that wound through the pines. Samuel seemed even more alert now, scanning every ridge, every shadow. The closer they got to Colorado, the more dangerous it felt. Around midday, they stopped by a small meadow filled with wildflowers. Naomi gathered wood while Samuel cleaned a young deer he'd shot earlier. They cooked the meat over a small fire, and for a while everything felt peaceful. But peace did not last. When the fire died low, Naomi found the courage to ask a question that had been growing inside her. "Samuel, why are you really helping me?" He froze, the piece of cloth in his hands going still. Slowly, he lifted his gaze to hers. "You're right," he said. "I haven't told you everything." Her breath caught. "I know the Holloways," he continued quietly. "Better than I said." A cold wave washed over Naomi. "How well?" "Victor's brother, Richard. He married my sister," Samuel said, his voice low. "My sister died under mysterious circumstances. They called it an accident." He shook his head. "It wasn't." Naomi's heart broke for him. "Oh, Samuel." "I tried to get justice," he said softly. "But the Holloways own everything in that county. Money buys silence." Naomi understood that truth far too well. "For 2 years," Samuel continued, "I've been gathering proof, evidence, witnesses. The Holloways have left a trail of corruption across Wyoming territory. A federal marshal in Cheyenne is working a case. I planned to meet him before all this happened." "Before you found me," Naomi whispered. He nodded. "When I saw you by that stream, hurt, frightened, running from Victor, I couldn't walk away. It wasn't about the case. It was about you." Naomi felt her throat tighten. "I should have told you sooner," he said, "but I didn't want you to feel used." "You helped me when no one else did," she replied. "You saved me, Samuel." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The truth between them felt heavy yet strangely freeing. "We should go," Samuel said at last. "Colorado's close." They packed up and rode on. 3 days later, they reached the Colorado border. The air felt different here, lighter, safer, but Samuel stayed tense. He knew danger wasn't far behind. At Pine Ridge, the trail split. One road led south toward Denver, the other east toward Cheyenne. "This is where we part for now," Samuel said quietly. Naomi's heart squeezed painfully. She had grown used to him, his steady presence, his quiet humor, his watchful eyes that made her feel safe for the first time since her father's death. "How long will you be in Cheyenne?" she asked. "A week," Samuel replied. "Maybe less." "And after?" "I'll come to Denver," he promised. "I'll find your aunt's boarding house." Naomi swallowed hard. "Be careful. They're dangerous, Samuel." Quote, "I know," he said gently, "but I've been waiting a long time to face them." She moved to mount her horse, but he reached out and touched her hand. Just once, just briefly, but the warmth of it flooded through her. "10 days," he said. "Look for me." "I will." Their eyes held for a moment longer, and then she rode away, afraid that if she looked back, she might never find the courage to leave. Naomi reached Denver 4 days later. Her aunt welcomed her with tears and open arms. She told her story, though she left out Samuel's connection to the Holloways. She worked at the boarding house, helped with chores, began healing in a way she never thought possible. But every night she watched the street from her window, waiting. 10 days passed, then 11, then 12. Her heart sank a little more each morning. On the 14th day, when she had nearly convinced herself he wasn't coming, her aunt called from the front door. "Naomi, dear, there's a gentleman here for you." Her hands shook as she hurried to the parlor. Samuel stood there, dusty from travel, eyes tired but alive. When he saw her, his whole face softened. "Naomi," he breathed. "You came," she whispered. "I told you I would." But something heavy lingered in his eyes. "What happened in Cheyenne? You're late." "The Holloways found out about the meeting," he said. "We stayed ahead of them, but barely. The marshal has enough evidence now to open a federal case." "That's good," Naomi said, "isn't it?" Quote, "It is," Samuel said, "but it means things will get worse before they get better." Naomi stepped closer. "What are you saying?" Samuel took a breath, steady, deep, like a man about to do something irreversible. "I'm leaving Denver tomorrow," he said. "New Mexico territory, for a while. But," he hesitated, "I don't want to go alone." Her heart stopped. "Samuel, I know it's sudden," he said quickly, "but these past weeks with you, Naomi, I haven't felt something like that in years. I don't have wealth or safety to offer you, but I can offer you honesty, respect." His voice lowered. "A life beside me, if you want it." Naomi had no words. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his breath. "I'm asking," his voice cracked just slightly. "I'm asking you to marry me." Her breath caught. He waited, the world suspended between them. Before she could speak, a sharp knock hit the front door behind them. Naomi's aunt appeared, face pale. "Naomi," she whispered, "there are men outside. They said they're looking for a woman from Prosperity Creek." Samuel went rigid. "They've found me," he said. "I have to leave. Now." He grabbed his hat. "Meet me tomorrow at noon. St. Michael's Church, edge of town." "Samuel!" "Please," he said, eyes pleading. "Come. Even if your answer is no, come." Then he vanished out the back door before the Holloway men could see him. That night, Naomi didn't sleep. She replayed every moment with Samuel, from the creek where he found her bruised and bleeding, to the fire where he kept watch over her, to every quiet conversation on the trail, every moment he chose to protect instead of possess. Her aunt's words from earlier echoed softly. "Sometimes 3 weeks tells you more about a person than 3 years." By morning, Naomi knew what she had to do. She went to St. Michael's Church. Samuel was waiting, hat in hand, eyes hopeful and afraid all at once. "You came," he whispered. Naomi stepped close enough to touch his chest. "Yes," she said, "and my answer is yes." Emotion filled his eyes. "You'll marry me?" "Yes," she breathed. "I'll choose you. I'll choose our future." Samuel gathered her into his arms right there on the church steps, holding her as though he'd found the missing piece of his life. They married the next morning in a quiet ceremony with her aunt and uncle as witnesses. Naomi wore a simple blue dress. Samuel wore his least-worn shirt. Their vows were small, steady, and full of truth. By noon, they were on the road to New Mexico, together. The next years were hard. They hid often. The Holloways fought the investigation. But Samuel and Naomi never wavered. And when justice finally came, when Victor and Richard Holloway were sentenced, when the land became safe again, they built the life they dreamed of, a small ranch. 2 children, a porch swing under a big New Mexico sky. One morning, 10 years later, Naomi stood on that porch, watching Samuel teach their daughter to ride. Their son dangled his legs off the fence, cheering loudly. Samuel walked toward her, that soft smile she loved spreading across his face. "10 years," he said, wrapping his arms around her. "Still glad you chose me?" Naomi kissed him gently. "Every single day." He brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "You know, I once told you you were the bravest woman I ever met." "I remember," she said softly. "You proved it," he whispered. "Then and now." Naomi looked at the home they built, the life they created from fear, hope, and impossible courage. "I wasn't brave alone," she said. "I became brave with you." And under the warm New Mexico sun, Samuel Lawson kissed the woman he once found, bruised, bleeding, and determined. The woman he took by the hand and promised forever. His forever, her forever, their forever.